50 one-man gang moments from WCW according to the WWE. This was a Blu-ray released by World Wrestling Entertainment in 2014, and today I'm going to condense it down while deciding, as an old jaded wrestling fan, if they're really OMG moments or just moments. I haven't watched this yet. I'm watching it for the first time while writing this video script, and I'm going to use the following scoring system for each moment. OMG, yes, it's a moment that might make a fan say, oh my god. Too sweet. It's a great moment, but it doesn't make you jump from your seat and shout oh my god or anything like that. But it's still very good. It happened. Yeah, it happened. It's fine. It's not good. It's not bad. It's nothing to get overly excited about. WTF, not a cool or surprising moment at all. It shouldn't have been on the feature. So let's run down what the WWE thinks are the top 50 OMG incidents in WCW history. This will be a two-parter. This video is going to feature moments 50 to 21, and the second part's going to feature the last 20 moments. Part 2 is going to be released within the next fortnight or so. Please keep in mind too that this is all just my opinion, and you will undoubtedly feel different about my rankings. But also keep in mind that the WWE, or the guys putting together these DVDs and Blu-rays, thought that these were 50 significant incidents that happened in World Championship Wrestling. Number 50, the Junkyard Brawl at Bash at the Beach 1999. So this is what we're in for. The Junkyard match was filmed at night, and William Regal says he warned production staff that fans won't be able to see the action. Even after bringing in spotlights and a helicopter, it still looked bad. So Regal decided to let everyone fight while he sat behind a car door. Whenever the spotlight would come near him, that's the only time he would get physical. A smart man right there, folks. Finlay laughs and says the whole thing was just weird. This isn't an OMG moment or a top incident in WCW, so we have a WTF rating straight away. Fantastic. Number 49, Jim Duggan joins Team Canada at Fall Brawl 2000. Terry Taylor says this was done for shock value and to get an emotional response. Maybe if it happened 10 years prior, Terry might have got the response he was looking for. With all due respect to Jim Duggan, I think a lot of fans would have preferred if he stayed away from Team Canada, but I don't think this is an OMG moment either, so WTF again, I'm afraid. Number 48, the Ultimate Warrior debuts in WCW. Warrior's WCW run gets buried here by Jon Moxley, Natalya Neidhart and Hulk Hogan. Hogan takes the blame for the Halloween Havoc match being awful, and the only guy who gives Warrior any kind of credit is Tony Schiavone. Tony seemed to understand what Warrior vs Hogan meant to a lot of older viewers when considering their history in the World Wrestling Federation, and Cody Rhodes probably has the most relatable take. He's still like the Warrior in WCW, but it just wasn't the same. The Halloween Havoc match was awful, but I'm rating this too sweet based on the fact that the Ultimate Warrior walked into WCW to confront Hogan. If we were just rating Halloween Havoc, then it would have been a WTF rating for sure. Number 47, the San Francisco 49ers match. Booker T vs Jeff Jarrett took place on the 2nd of October 2000 episode of Nitro. In their match, 4 boxes were suspended above each corner. Inside one of those boxes was the World Championship, and the other boxes contained a blow-up doll, a picture of Scott Hall, and a coal miner's glove. Booker T said he and Jarrett's reactions were candid because they didn't know what was inside the boxes, but he also takes shots at Vince Russo, saying this was another one of his wonderful ideas. The match was awful, by the way. The boxes fell off the poles, and the world title fell out of the final box when Booker tried to smash it open. WTF, this was shit. Number 46, the King of the Road match. I made a video about this previously, Blacktop Bully vs Dustin Rhodes on the back of an 18-wheeler. The match, if you can even call it a match, happened at Uncensored 1995 and it wasn't great. A lot of money was spent for very little return, the action was hard to follow, the wrestlers struggled to perform moves or even stand up straight, and it all led to Dustin, Bully and Dusty Rhodes getting fired due to the guys getting colour during the match, something that makes no sense because it was all pre-taped for pay-per-view. Maybe a good idea on paper, but poor in execution. Number 45, Russo resets World Championship Wrestling. Oh my god moments don't have to be good moments, but they can also be, oh my god, this is unbelievable moments, and this is why I think this is actually an OMG moment for WCW. Russo gets everyone in the ring on the April 10th, 2000 episode of Nitro, and he announces the company are starting completely fresh. He and Eric Bischoff plan on taking things in a new direction. Every title gets stripped, all storylines get scrapped, and WCW will move forward with a focus on young talent, or the new blood. Things didn't quite work out that way, but it's the first time a large company like this ever came out on TV and completely wiped the slate clean. So yeah, it was controversial. In hindsight, it was maybe not the best idea, but it's still something that's talked about to this very day. Number 44, Chucky in WCW. This is one of those moments that some fans are going to like and others not so much. If you're a die-hard fan of horror movies and whatnot, then you might get something out of this, so it's maybe unfair to call it flat out shit. Chucky shows up on the big screen during Nitro to give Rick Steiner a hard time, even bringing up Big Mommy Steiner. And Rick just stands there and he has to listen to this little bastard cut a promo on him. Billy Kidman says he felt sorry for Rick, he was just doing what he was told. And Bill DeMott says Chucky had heat with the boys backstage because the fucking doll got more airtime than some of the wrestlers. For fans of scary movies and all that, I'll give this a It Happened rating, but it's very close to a WTF. If you don't like the Child's Play movies, you can lower the rating. Cross-promotion in wrestling isn't uncommon, though this one was a bit, I don't know, it just didn't seem to fit all that well, I thought. Well, this has been going well so far, hasn't it? Let's see what was number 43. It's Bill Goldberg turning heel at the Great American Bash 2000. Mean Gene Okerlund says this was comparable to Hulk Hogan joining the New World Order in 1996, and sorry Mean Gene, it wasn't. I will say though that Goldberg turning heel actually made sense because he had wrestled and beaten every single bad guy in the company at this point, so it does open up the doors for more matches, but Goldberg himself didn't buy into it and he didn't like being a heel. Terry Taylor explains that if a superstar doesn't believe in what he's doing, then it's not going to work, and it didn't work. Number 42, DDP disguised as La Parka. This is a too sweet moment for sure. The 1997 DDP vs Randy Savage feud was a whole lot of fun, and this was one of the best moments of the rivalry. Savage thought he was wrestling La Parka, but La Parka performs a diamond cutter and the crowd pops. The mask comes off and it was DDP all along. I kinda want to say this was an OMG moment, but on the absolute grand scheme of things, when we look at WCW as a whole, it wasn't overly significant. It was an excellent moment for sure though, and a moment that lives rent-free in my head. Number 41, the Horsemen attack Dusty in the Omni. The Blu-ray doesn't give much context here, but I'll explain what happened. Dusty Rhodes comes to the ring to help Ric Flair fight off Nikita and Ivan Koloff. After getting rid of the Russians, Dusty tried to help Flair to his feet, but Flair shouted at Dusty not to interfere in his business. The American Dream didn't notice the Andersons entering the cage behind him, and the Horsemen attacked Dusty. Flair jumps from the top rope and he breaks Dusty's leg, and a riot almost breaks out in the Omni as fans tried to climb the cage and help the American Dream. This is what you'd call real heat. The betrayal was way worse than the actual attack, and it made fans lose their minds. OMG moment for sure. This angle was used to turn Ric Flair heel in the Mid-Atlantic area as well, meaning the Nature Boy was a heel in every territory he worked in. Number 40, Chris Jericho vs Bill Goldberg. This isn't a particular moment, but more of a series of events that again I've covered on the channel already. Jericho wanted to wrestle Goldberg because he felt it would draw money, but Goldberg wasn't too eager to fight Y2J. As a matter of fact, Goldberg thought Jericho was legitimately being disrespectful by mocking him on live TV. Keep in mind that Jericho didn't want to beat Goldberg or end the streak or anything like that. Goldberg just felt a fully fledged program with Jericho wasn't worth his time. Still, Jericho was great during all this. We got the botchy Goldberg fireworks, we got Jericho personal security, and we got Jericho calling Billy Boy Greenberg at every given opportunity. So just for Jericho's work alone, I'll say this was too sweet. Keep in mind, I'm removing Goldberg completely from the equation here when rating this. Jericho's work though was absolutely brilliant. Number 39, the Bash at the Beach 2000 controversy. This one's been covered to death too, and still there's conflicting stories about what happened. But Jeff Jarrett lay down in the middle of the ring for Hulk Hogan, and Hogan became WCW champion. Hogan and Bischoff left the arena and they felt everything went according to plan. But then Vince Russo came out and he buried Hulk Hogan. Hogan was called a bald piece of shit and a man who we would never see in WCW again, and right enough, he didn't come back. They worked themselves into a shoot, brother, and I got a good chuckle out of Hogan saying he never exercised his creative control clause until this match took place. I'd say this was a mid moment. It still gets talked about, so it's worth something, but it wasn't good, and it certainly wasn't an OMG moment, because we were already used to seeing this kind of nonsense happening on WCW quite often. Number 38, Sting's entrance at Club La Villa. It's a bit of a random one this, but I always liked the spring break episodes of Nitro with the ring itself sitting on a swimming pool. In 1998, the Stinger hopped out of a helicopter to get into the ring, and yeah, it's cool, definitely. Too sweet. Number 37, Judy Bagwell. What the fuck? Next. Number 36, Lex Luger appears on the first episode of Nitro. This is pretty significant. Lex Luger showing up on the first episode of Nitro really did set the tone for what was to come. You'd see a lot of guys from the past and guys from WWF jumping ship, and Luger showing up was seen as the first shot of the Monday Night War. Lex may have lost his push a little in the World Wrestling Federation, but he became a key player in WCW during the first 2 years of the war, so I definitely give this an OMG rating. Very memorable indeed. Number 35, Sid's car. On the 27th of September 1997 episode of Nitro, Sid went to leave the arena. He got a shock when his car was sitting there flat as a pancake, and his reaction was nothing short of legendary. The same thing happened the week after. Sid's car was turned into a big old block of scrap metal, and again, Sid's reaction was absolutely brilliant. He started shouting, "Why me? Why me?" while looking up to the heavens, and yeah, nothing but pure comedy here. Let's put this in the mid-tier. On the Blu-ray, a ton of guys completely bury Sid, by the way. Heath Slater, Teddy Long, Chris Jericho, and Michael Hayes all rip into Sid, and the only guy again talking sense is Tony Schiavone. Tony says Sid vs Goldberg sold itself and the feud didn't need anything else, but I'm still happy that this happened. Sid jumping up and down and complaining about his car is some great TV. It's absolutely not an OMG moment though. Number 34, the Chamber of Horrors match. It's a bit of a tough one to score here because the idea and the premise of the Chamber of Horrors match really wasn't all that bad, but my god, this one turned into a proper train wreck. So many competitors were changed leading up to the event and the match itself was just laughable. This is another match I've covered in the past, so check that video out if you want to see what happened. I'm gonna go with It Happened again. Good idea, it got young fans excited at the time. There's some huge superstars involved in the bout, but the match was horrible. Cody Rhodes says this was an example of WCW wanting to make movie magic and failing to do so due to poor production. Number 33, the WCW Mini Movies. Beach Blast, The White Castle of Fear, and Spin the Wheel Make the Deal are all bundled together here, and I'm surprised they didn't try to separate these out. These mini-movies were used to build up pay-per-view matches, and they were so cheesy and so corny that they actually become must-see parts of WCW history. Truly awful in the absolute best way possible. Dusty Rhodes says here that he thought he was making Gone with the Wind when putting some of these together. Awesome. Yes, they're bad, but they're also entertaining. I'm putting these in the too sweet tier. I don't care. Fight me. Number 32, RoboCop in WCW. You might think it's hypocritical to give praise to the WCW mini movies but then rip into RoboCop showing up in WCW, but it's got that ulterior motive thing going on with the movie promotion and all that, and call me crazy, but I don't think that's the real RoboCop either. The Stinger getting helped out by big Robo-Balls is well remembered, but I can't say it's an OMG moment, nor can I say it's sweet because, well, it wasn't. So it's another It Happened moment. Number 31, Kenyon's fall at Slamboree 2000. Kenyon took a dive off the triple cage at WCW Slamboree 2000 pay-per-view. Well, he took a dive off the first cage. Kenyon wasn't even involved in the match. It was DDP versus David Arquette versus Jeff Jarrett, and the guy who threw him off, Mike Awesome, wasn't involved in the match either. It looked great on TV, but William Regal sums it up perfectly on this Blu-ray. After Mick Foley jumped off the Hell in a Cell, nothing else is compared. Everything after Foley's dive has been second rate. So, again, it happened. Number 30, the Human Torch match. Gonna admit, I like this more than others do. The match gets criticised a lot and even the folks on this Blu-ray rip into it. but setting a dude on fire then watching that dude fall from an entranceway set will always get a thumbs up in my book. Obviously it was a stuntman and it wasn't what fans bang the Great American Bash 2000 were expecting to see, but I really don't hate this as much as others. Not gonna say it was too sweet though, it just happened. Number 29, the Horsemen break Dusty's arm. I don't think this was as good as the near riot at the Omni, but this is well remembered too. This one aired on the World Championship Wrestling show on October 25th, 1986, and it's the Horsemen following Dusty Rhodes in their car and then jumping him when he parks up at Jim Crockett's office. Dusty ends up getting his arm broke, and the fact that it was censored made it feel more violent than what it really was. Remember, this was 1986. Things like this weren't very common where the action was recorded outside of the ring. Number 28, Russo wins the world title. WTF, just what the fuck, absolute nonsense. I know people like to say a belt is just a prop, but I still don't want to see someone who can't wrestle having main event matches, never mind winning the prop that every superstar in the company is supposed to be aiming for. I think fans could maybe look over it if Booker T vs Russo was at least entertaining, but it wasn't, it was shit. Russo gave the belt up days later, meaning it was done for absolutely no good reason at all. Number 27, Goldberg spears Bret Hart. This is more like it. The spear was one of the most feared moves in all of WCW, and it always looked awesome when Goldberg performed it. Bret Hart, a man who studies his opponents, went out and bought himself a protective plate that he hid under his Maple Leafs jersey. Goldberg speared Bret, the two lay on the mat for a moment, but then Bret got up before Billy Boy and the crowd wondered how this was possible. Bret revealed his spear defense mechanism and the Toronto crowd went absolutely crazy. Number 26, Bischoff gets jackknifed. I don't want to say this was an OMG moment because I'm sure Hall and Nash showing up on Nitro will be on this list a little later on, and that's the real OMG moment in all of this, but this was still good. Nash and Hall wanted to know if WCW would put up 3 guys to face the Outsiders and a mystery partner at Bash at the Beach. Bischoff had a meeting with the WCW Executive Committee and the match was agreed. When Bischoff wouldn't reveal who WCW's 3 men were, Scott Hall decided to punch Eric and Nash jackknifed Eric off the stage. A very cool moment indeed, and one again that's well remembered. People forget though that, in storyline, Bischoff joined the NWO after this very show. Eric said months later on Nitro that he quickly realised who was going to win this war after the Great American Bash, and he met with Nash and Hall after the pay-per-view to join forces. Bischoff pretended to still be on WCW's side after the powerbomb. Number 25, the Fingerpoke of Doom. Yeah, the Fingerpoke of Doom. I'm surprised this is right in the middle of the show and not closer to the end. I have to give this an OMG rating, and again, it's not because it's good, it's because the mad bastards had the audacity to do such a thing, and also because, like it or not, this is historically significant when talking about the overall history of WCW. You know the story, Nash beats Goldberg at Starrcade and he ends the streak. He then faces Hollywood Hogan on Nitro and he goes down after a finger poke. Hogan wins the world title and fans feel absolutely ripped off. It also signified a return to the same old shit for WCW, and it was seen as a catastrophic blunder of epic proportions. Number 24, Rey Mysterio vs Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc. One of the best matches WCW ever put on, and a match that made a lot of people pay closer attention to the Cruiserweight division. Still today, many people talk about this match, and that's how you know it's a classic. The best WCW Cruiserweight match of all time in my opinion. I don't think it ever got any better than this. I'm also giving it the OMG rating just for the insane moves that both guys pulled off during the bout. It is enough to make you jump off your seat and scream OMG the first time you see it. Number 23, DDP fools the Outsiders. This moment became pretty special for me, not because of how I felt when I watched it back in 1997, it was awesome then, but because Dallas Page came on the Reliving the War show to specifically talk about it, and he didn't want a thing in return, he was just happy to share how it all came together, and I thought that was pretty awesome. Nash and Hall thought DDP had joined the NWO, but Dallas surprises everyone by dropping Scott with a diamond cutter and sending Nash over the top rope. There's no point in me telling the story. Watch episode 66 of Reliving the War and hear Dallas talk about the whole thing himself. Number 22, Lost in Cleveland. It's kind of funny and a bit worrying how many of these moments I've covered on the channel, but here's another one I looked at in the past. Cactus Jack lost in Cleveland. Vader completely messed Cactus Jack up and he suffered from amnesia. He didn't return home and he didn't show up for work. So some random lady went out looking for Cactus Jack and the whole thing was recorded like an ongoing news report. The reporter went to the hospital and she went to Jack's home. She went to the mean streets of Cleveland trying to find Jack. And in the end, she didn't find Cactus, but instead she found a guy who thought he was a sailor and his girlfriend named Bang Bang. Cactus Jack had forgotten who he was and he'd forgotten what he was. He would show little signs of his past, but Jack was gone and it looked like it was going to be a tough task to bring him back. In the end though, we didn't get to see the true ending to this storyline because basically Jim Herd didn't like it. So it was a waste of time, effort and a lot of money. It just got cancelled. Mick Foley has a great quote in this Blu-ray when talking about the Lost in Cleveland storyline. He says, "How do you make a guy who looks homeless look homeless?" He has a point though. The idea they had here was to shave Mick's eyebrows and shave his beard. That, for some reason, was supposed to make Jack look like a homeless man with amnesia. Unreal. He also says here that he told Dusty Rhodes he thought the angle wasn't all that good when it was pitched to him, but when Dusty said Jack would get sent home for a few weeks with full pay, Foley thought it was the best idea in the world. Lost in Cleveland isn't total what the fuck material though. It's kinda entertaining in the same way that the WCW Mini Movies were entertaining, so I'd say it happened and nothing more. Number 21, Flair in a psychiatric hospital. This is one of those storylines that not only hasn't aged well, but it wasn't good to begin with. It's one of those angles too that some fans are going to get upset about, but let's take a quick look at it before wrapping up part 1 of this look at 50 OMG WCW moments. Ric Flair became the president of WCW and he lost his way. Roddy Piper showed a great deal of concern for Flair as the Nature Boy's mental state was slowly deteriorating. And do keep in mind, this was all done in a comedic fashion. Flair's antics were supposed to be funny. Piper petitioned to get Flair checked into a mental institution and Flair thought he was in a 5-star hotel. The visual of Ric Flair styling and profiling with a bunch of fellow patients is one I'm sure even Ric Flair would like to forget. Bits of this footage was played throughout an entire episode of Nitro, and for absolutely no reason at all, Scott Hall also showed up. If you got something out of this, then awesome. I'm not one to judge, but for me, it's a WTF moment that was a bit unnecessary. Larry Sabisco says here that he doesn't remember this at all, and even if he did see it, he'd just pretend that he didn't. Alright, so we just looked at the first 30 of these oh my god moments selected by WWE, and in my opinion, only 5 of them are true moments that would make you say, oh my god. Not great, is it? 9 moments were too sweet, 10 moments were just things that happened and they weren't really all that special, and there were 6 WTF moments that shouldn't have been included because they either sucked or they were just misplaced on a list like this. I'll get to work soon on covering what the WWE thinks of the top 20 oh my god moments in WCW history, so look out for part 2 in the near future. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching and take care.